Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. It started like any other sleepover. I was 13, right in that awkward stretch between childhood and real teenage freedom. Old enough to want independence, but still young enough to think crashing at a friend's house was a big deal. That kind of night meant junk food, stupid jokes, and the giddy thrill of pretending we were adults with no bedtime. It was late fall, cool enough that blankets were a must, but the windows stayed cracked just enough to let in the pine-scented air. I grew up in Riverview Heights, a small, quiet town tucked against a sprawling forest. The kind of place where everyone knew your dog's name and strange things just didn't happen, or so we thought. That Friday, my friend Daniel invited me, Eli, and Sean over for a sleepover. His house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a split level with a view of the woods. It was the kind of neighborhood where porch lights flicked on automatically at 7 p.m., and people smiled and waved whether you were a stranger or not. Daniel's mom was working the night shift at the hospital, and his older brother had left for college. In other words, we had the place to ourselves, and that meant total chaos. We holed up in Daniel's room for hours. His room was barely big enough for his twin bed, a cluttered desk, and a tangle of sleeping bags we threw down wherever there was space. We hurled chips at each other, downed too much Mountain Dew, and cackled over the dumbest YouTube videos like they were comedy gold. It was exactly what a sleepover should be. We just settled in for the night, lights dimmed, when Eli, who had claimed the spot next to the wall, suddenly sat up. "Dude, where's my blanket?" he asked, confused. Daniel snorted. "You probably kicked it under your bag. Check." Eli sat up, patting around, then frowned. "No, I swear, it was right here. I was just using it." We all looked. Under the sleeping bag, behind the desk, between the bed and the wall, even in the hallway. It was gone. At first it was hilarious. Eli was always doing dumb stuff. Once he tried to charge his phone with a Capri Sun straw. We figured it was more of that. But after 10 solid minutes of searching, it stopped being funny. Daniel eventually grabbed him a thin throw blanket from the linen closet. We moved on, half watching a try not to laugh challenge, but the mood had shifted. Something just felt off. Then Sean sat up, not laughing, not joking. "Okay, not funny. Where the hell is my blanket?" He was serious, his voice clipped and tight. The room fell quiet. "You're messing with us, right?" I asked. "No, dude. I was just lying under it. I didn't even move." Daniel flicked the overhead light on. The warm shadows vanished, replaced by a cold, sterile brightness. It felt like the entire room exhaled. No one laughed this time. We tore the place apart. I checked the closet, the guest room downstairs, even the laundry area. Nothing. 2 blankets. Gone. No open windows. No unlocked doors. And Daniel's golden retriever, Sadie? She hadn't even left the couch all night. She usually snoozed under it, nose twitching in dreams. "So, who the hell took them?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't like this," Eli mumbled. He kept rubbing his arms like he was cold even though the room wasn't. "This feels like some paranormal activity type crap," Daniel said, trying to laugh. "Guys, come on, it's probably a prank. My brother could have come home and snuck in or something. He does dumb stuff all the time." He called his brother. Straight to voicemail. We tried to go back to our video, but the energy had bled out of the room. We were just pretending to be okay. Eventually someone said, "Let's go heat up some pizza rolls." And we all jumped at the excuse to leave the room. The kitchen light was a relief. We joked around again, half-hearted, voices a little too loud, but it was something. 20 minutes, tops. When we came back, Sean stopped dead in the doorway. His face drained of color. "Nope, nope, no freaking way," he whispered. His sleeping bag was gone. Not just the blanket this time, the entire thing. Vanished. We all froze, our eyes locked on the bare patch of carpet where it had been, like it was the site of a murder. It didn't make sense. We had been together, all of us, in the kitchen. No one snuck off, no creaking floorboards, no doors, just gone. And then I saw it. A flash of gray peeking from under Daniel's bed, a scrap of fleece. "Hey," I said, swallowing hard. "There's something under there." I crouched down and reached for the scrap of fleece. The second my fingers brushed it, I heard a sudden rustle, sharp, quick, like someone shifting their weight on plastic. I froze. The sound was so close it felt like it was inside my head. My heart slammed to a stop and a cold, full-body shiver gripped me. I leaned in a little more, expecting to find the blanket balled up, caught under the frame. But then, I saw them. Eyes, staring back at me from the dark beneath the bed. Not animal eyes, not glowing or reflective. Human. Still. Watching. I screamed, instinct ripping it out of me before I could think. The others screamed too, high, panicked, unfiltered. We didn't wait. We crashed into each other, scrambling out the room, arms grabbing at anything, feet tangling in sleeping bags. Pure, blind panic. Daniel slammed the bedroom door and locked it hard. We all stood there in the hallway, gasping, shaking, adrenaline crackling through our nerves. "What the hell was that?" Sean yelled, eyes wide, voice on the edge of breaking. "Who the hell was that?" Eli cried. "I thought that was your dog," he added, looking at Daniel like he wanted him to say this was a joke. Daniel was sheet white. "Sadie's on the couch," he whispered. "She hasn't moved all night." "I saw eyes," I said, still breathless, barely able to speak. They were human, not animal. We didn't go back in the room. No way. Instead, we grabbed what we could, dragged our sleeping bags to the living room and turned on every light. The TV played some muted cartoon rerun, but none of us really watched it. Sadie, for the first time that night, curled up next to us, but she kept lifting her head, ears twitching, eyes locked on the hallway, like she knew something we didn't. No one really slept. We just lay there, waiting, listening. At around 3 a.m., Sadie stood up stiff, her hackles raised. A low, rolling growl built in her chest, deep and primal. She stared toward the hallway, her body tense. Then she barked, loud and sharp, snapping the silence like glass. A creak followed. Just one, long and slow, like a floorboard. Daniel whispered, barely audible, "Someone's in the house." We armed ourselves with whatever we could find. Broom handles, a fire poker, even a foam Nerf bat someone had brought for fun. And we sat there, a pathetic little army of kids, shaking and wide-eyed, clutching random weapons, waiting for the sun to rise. When Daniel's mom came home at 7 a.m., we all talked over each other, breathless and scared. We expected her to laugh, tell us we imagined it, but she didn't. She listened, and when she went down the hall, she stopped dead in her tracks. "Muddy footprints," she said quietly, leading from the window. The window in the hallway barely cracked open. She called the police. They searched the house top to bottom. Every room, closet, under the beds. They found nothing. The official guess? Probably an animal, maybe a prank. Maybe one of you kids sleepwalked and dragged the blankets around. We knew better. We felt it. The cold stare. The silence under the bed. The breath I swear I heard when I leaned down. No one sleepwalks and hides inside a mattress frame. A week later, Daniel called me. His voice was off, flat, like he'd been crying or hadn't slept. "They found someone," he said, "in the attic." I went still. Every hair on my arm stood up. He'd been up there for a while, months maybe, Daniel said. Came in through the crawl space under the deck, just stayed. My skin crawled. At night he'd come down, take stuff, blankets, food, our things. The cops found wrappers, empty bottles, clothes, stuff from our backpacks. I didn't say anything. Couldn't. Daniel hesitated. "He had a knife," he added. "A hunting knife. They found it up there." He told me the guy was a frogger, someone who secretly lives in someone else's house, hides in walls, basements, crawl spaces, watches, waits, moves only when you're asleep, sometimes worse. The cops said we were lucky, that he never heard us. But we remembered that stare, those eyes under the bed, the silence behind the wall. He was there, the whole time, while we laughed, played games, threw chips, while we walked around barefoot and joked about ghosts. He was there, maybe right under us, maybe watching from under the bed, hidden by a thin layer of shadows and childhood trust. We never stayed at Daniel's house again. None of us even wanted to drive past it. He moved the following summer. His mom couldn't take it, couldn't live there, knowing what had happened. The attic entrance? Just a panel in the hallway ceiling. No lock, no ladder. You could lift it with one hand. And when I think about that night, I don't remember the dumb videos or the pizza rolls. I remember the sound of slow, steady breathing behind the wall. That was Trevor's thing, or Brandon when he'd spiral down late-night YouTube rabbit holes about break-ins, missing persons, or cartel kidnappings. Me? I was the guy telling everyone to chill out. The world wasn't that crazy. People, for the most part, weren't monsters. Stuff like that didn't happen in real life. That was before last summer, before the night that burned away whatever innocence we had left. It started like any other sleepover we'd had a dozen times before. A tradition, really. Since middle school, every summer we'd take turns crashing at someone's house, staying up until dawn with bags of junk food, horror movies, and the kind of games that make you laugh until you can't breathe. Would you rather? Truth or dare? Or would you fight a bear for $1 million? This time, we were at Caleb's place, a wide, one-story house on the edge of town, in a neighborhood called Brookside Pines. The name made it sound fancy, but it wasn't. Just quiet. Safe. The kind of suburb where the mailboxes still had little flags, where kids rode bikes barefoot at dusk and everyone waved, even if they didn't know your name. Caleb's parents were the hands-off type. They stocked up on Costco snacks and trusted us not to trash the place. His dad was a commercial pilot, always gone on some long-haul flight, and his mom worked nights at the hospital. That Friday, she left around 6:30, gave us the usual wink and said, "Don't stay up too late," already knowing we would. There were 6 of us that night: me, Isaac, Caleb, Trevor, Brandon, and Eric. We were all 17, seniors now, standing on the edge of whatever comes after childhood. You could feel it in the air, like this was one of the last real sleepovers we'd ever have. It felt good, familiar, until it didn't. We started the night lazy, pizza boxes stacked on the counter, bottles of Mountain Dew sweating on the coffee table, a few loud rounds of Mortal Kombat, and then The Conjuring on Caleb's massive flat screen. Around 10, someone suggested flashlight tag in the backyard, but we shot it down. Too humid, too many bugs. Besides, there was something strange about that night. The air outside felt thick, too still. No wind, just a heavy heat pressing against the windows like it wanted in. At exactly 11:15, the doorbell rang. Caleb frowned. "You guys expecting anyone?" None of us were. He walked over, checked the peephole, and cracked the door. "Oh," he said, relaxing a little. "It's just Mason, my cousin." None of us knew Mason well. I'd seen him at a barbecue once, maybe. He was a couple years older, 20 or so. He had this sleepy, slow-blinking expression like he was half high or half bored, and a lazy smirk that made it hard to tell if he was judging you or just amused by everything. "Yo," Mason said, sliding into the living room like he owned it. "Heard y'all had pizza." Caleb laughed, scratching the back of his neck. "Yeah, there's a few slices left." Mason didn't wait. He grabbed a paper plate and started stacking slices like it was his kitchen, not even asking. We paused the movie and sat awkwardly while he scarfed down half the leftovers, scrolling on his phone, barely looking at us. Not exactly rude, but definitely not there to bond either. Brandon leaned over and whispered, "This guy gives me weird vibes." I shrugged. He's just older, probably stoned. Mason hung around for maybe 40 minutes, ate, scrolled, mumbled something about meeting people later, and took off. Caleb didn't seem surprised. Said Mason sometimes stayed there when things were rough at his place. His parents were out of town and he had a spare key. Weird, sure, but not red flag weird, at least not yet. By midnight, we finally started winding down. Caleb dragged out sleeping bags, extra couch cushions, and we turned the living room into a patchwork campout. The kitchen light stayed on in the background, casting just enough of a warm glow so we weren't in total darkness. Everyone was in that half-sleep state, tossing around dumb jokes before anyone's even opened the door. I was 13 when it happened, 13 in that awkward in-between stage, still calling your parents mommy when you're scared, but trying your hardest to sound cool around your friends. My best friend back then, Callie Rodases, invited me and two other girls, Harper and June, for a Friday night sleepover at her place. She lived in one of those big, sagging houses right on the edge of Ashmill, a tiny town that felt like it was fading out of existence. The kind of house that groans in the wind and shifts like it's trying to wake up. Her family had moved in the year before, from somewhere farther upstate. We all thought it was insanely cool that she had the attic as her own room. Not like any of us had that kind of setup. The attic was weird, but not in a scary way. More like charmingly creepy. Slanted ceilings, wood floors that creaked no matter how light you stepped, and one of those tiny round windows that barely let in any light. It was always colder up there, no matter the weather. But Callie had made it feel like our own little hideout. She'd layered the floor with sleeping bags and throw pillows, hung up fairy lights that blinked gently like stars, and even dragged an old box TV and DVD player up there. It was part teenage dream, part cobweb nostalgia. We'd been there before, played the usual games, truth or dare, whispered secrets about our crushes, prank-called boys from school we didn't actually like. But that night felt off. I don't know if I felt it right away, or if my brain is just stitching that sense of dread into the memory now. Still, something about the air in that house that night didn't sit right. Callie's mom made us homemade pizza, rolling the dough by hand, tossing it with practiced ease. Her dad was out of town for work, so it was mostly just us. She had an older brother, Ryan, but he was crashing at a friend's place. So the house was quiet, just us girls, the attic, and ours to fill with nonsense. Callie was always discovering weird stuff in that house. A few weeks before, she told us she'd found a bunch of old letters stuffed inside a music box, hidden in the crawl space. One of those boxes with the spinning ballerina. Except the ballerina didn't have a head. Classic Ashmill house vibes. That night, she told us she'd found something new, her dad's old digital camera. She tossed it into the pile of blankets between us with a grin. "It still works," she said, holding up the bulky silver Sony Cybershot, early 2000s model, tiny little screen on the back and a massive flash that turned everyone into washed-out mannequins. Want to mess around with it? Of course we did. We were 13, buzzing on orange soda and Pop Rocks and desperate to kill time. We took turns making the dumbest faces, pretending to be supermodels, witches, vampires, whatever popped into our sugar-high brains. The flash was hilariously intense. Every shot looked like a blown-out ghost photo. That just made it better. Then Callie dared me to go into the basement alone and take a picture, with the lights off. I made it about 3 steps before I chickened out. Nope, not happening. Not. Harper and June weren't scared, though. To the old washing machine. Then, thump. Something heavy shifted upstairs. We all froze. Harper whispered, "What was that?" "Pipes?" June offered. "Or the cat." Callie's family had this elderly gray cat named Buttons. She barely made noise and moved like a puff of smoke. Could have been her. We laughed it off, hearts racing from the scare, and bolted back upstairs screaming just because we could. Back in the attic, we collapsed into our sleeping bags and let the adrenaline settle. Later, maybe around midnight, when everything outside the window was pitch black and still, Callie started scrolling through the camera. We huddled around her, laughing at our dumb expressions, the weird poses, the haunted-looking basement shots. Then she stopped. Her smile faded. Her finger hovered over the back button. She tapped once, then again. "Wait," she said softly. "Who's that?" "What?" June leaned closer. "That's us, in the living room. Yeah, but..." Callie turned the camera toward us. "Look." It was a picture of me, Harper, and June, arms stretched out, mouths open mid-scream laugh, pretending to levitate in front of the living room couch like we were witches casting spells. But what froze us, what made the air in the attic go dead silent, wasn't our ridiculous poses. It was what was behind us. Standing just past the hallway entrance was a man. Tall, thin, pale face, dressed in dark clothes almost blending into the shadows. Just standing there. Harper leaned in, her voice suddenly very small. "I don't remember anyone being behind us." "We were alone, right?" June asked, scanning all our faces like she was hoping someone would laugh and say we were wrong. My mouth had gone dry. I tried to keep my voice steady. Maybe it's Ryan. Maybe he came home early. "No," Callie said quietly. "He texted me an hour ago. He's staying over. He hasn't come back." She tapped the button again. The next photo loaded. The man had moved, closer now. Standing in the kitchen doorway, just behind Harper's shoulder. His face was still blank, unnervingly still. But his eyes were locked on the camera. On us. June sucked in a breath and yanked her sleeping bag up to her chin. "This is a prank, right? You edited these. You must have. You did something." "It's a digital camera," I said, hearing my own voice and not recognizing it. "You can't edit stuff like this on the camera. That's not how it works." Callie's hand was visibly shaking as she scrolled again. One more photo. Me and June were on the floor pretending to wrestle. Harper had just thrown a pillow at us, and behind me, right behind me, he was there again. Just a few feet back, reaching. His hand stretched toward me, fingers extended, maybe an inch from touching my shoulder. I felt something churn in my stomach. "He was that close," I whispered. "How did we not see him?" "We would have heard him," Callie said. Her voice had dropped to a whisper too. "The floorboards creak. He was right behind you." The panic didn't hit all at once. It came slowly, like the air had thickened and our lungs were working too hard. Like the whole room was tilting, just a little. Our brains were trying so hard to make it make sense, to say it was a glitch, a joke, anything but real. But the pictures didn't lie. He was there. He had been there. "I'm getting Mom," June said suddenly, scrambling up out of her sleeping bag. "No." Callie grabbed her arm, eyes wide. "They'll say it's fake or we imagined it. Just wait. Let's check the house. Right now." That was when I knew how scared she really was. Callie never wanted to check things herself. She always made Ryan do it, even during movie night when something creaked. But now she grabbed a broom like it was a weapon and led the way downstairs. We turned on every single light in the house. One by one. Every hallway, every room. We checked under beds, behind shower curtains, inside closets, even the garage. The back door was locked, so were all the windows. "There's no way he just got in and out without us noticing," Harper whispered. Her voice cracked. "There's no way." Eventually, we woke Callie's mom. She looked rattled, not because she didn't believe us, but because she might. Her eyes moved quickly as she flipped through the photos. Her mouth stayed tight, pressed in a hard line. She didn't say much, just kept looking. When Callie's dad came home the next morning, he took the camera, said he'd look at the settings, maybe figure out if something had glitched. But I remember his face as he clicked through the pictures, that look in his eyes. He knew it wasn't just lens flare. He knew. The worst part didn't happen that night, it came later. When Callie tried to show her parents the photos again, they were gone. All of them. Every single one from that night. Erased, just wiped clean. The older ones on the memory card were still there, but anything that showed him vanished. "I didn't delete anything," Callie said, her voice cracking with frustration. "I swear I didn't touch it." Her mom tried to reassure us. Sometimes the older memory cards go bad. They corrupt. It happens, but it didn't feel like corruption. It felt like someone, or something, didn't want us to remember. We begged Callie's dad to take the camera to someone, see if they could recover the files. He promised to try. A few days later, he said the card was too old. Nothing could be saved. It was unreliable. That was the end of it. Or at least it was supposed to be. None of us ever went back to that house. Callie started hanging out with different girls at school, girls who didn't ask questions. Harper moved away the next summer. June stopped replying to texts a few months later. We never talked about it again. But 30 years later, I still remember his face. Not angry, not sad, just there. Like he belonged in that house more than we ever did. Like we were the ones who didn't belong. Like we had wandered into his space, not the other way around. I've told this story maybe 3 times in my entire life. No one ever believes me. They say we dreamed it, that we were messing around, that it was some bored dad trying to scare us. But I remember that last picture. I remember how close he was, how I could almost feel the breath on my neck even though I didn't feel it then. You don't forget something like that. You can't. I didn't even want to go to the sleepover. It wasn't excitement or curiosity that made me say yes, it was pressure. Everyone else had already agreed. Jenna, Aiden, Rosie, Liam, and Chris. I didn't want to be the only one left out, the only one talked about later. So I caved. The plan had been floating around all week. Friday night at Miles's place. Horror movies, junk food, no parents. The thing is, I barely even knew Miles. He went to our school, sure, same year, even had a couple classes with me, but we'd never really talked. He was one of those kids who always lingered on the edges of things. Not mean, not weird exactly, just distant. He wore that same black hoodie every day, even when it was 90 degrees out, and spent most lunch breaks scribbling into a black notebook while the rest of us were laughing about memes or arguing about whose turn it was to buy chips. I should have trusted my gut. What I didn't know at the time, what none of us knew, was that this wasn't just some casual hangout. This was going to be Miles's first sleepover, ever. He lived way out on the edge of Larkspur Lane, in one of those forgotten houses that looked like they belonged in a different decade. 2 stories, wraparound porch, sagging wood steps. The kind of house that maybe used to be beautiful, before time and weather started pulling it apart. Paint peeling like sunburned skin. A yellow porch light that blinked like it couldn't decide whether to die or stay alive. Grass dry and patchy, as if someone had tried half-heartedly to take care of it and then given up. His parents were out of town, gone for the whole weekend, apparently at some kind of work retreat in Vermont. They'd left him alone with pizza money and a neatly typed list of emergency contacts. Now that I think about it, that should have been the first red flag. Who leaves a 15-year-old completely alone for the weekend with 6 other kids? But we didn't think like that. We were teenagers. It sounded like freedom. When we showed up, Miles answered the door wearing that same black hoodie. He didn't smile, just gave each of us this slow, silent nod like he was checking us off a list. Then he stepped aside to let us in. The living room was dim. Not just chill movie night dim, like weirdly dark. Just a couple of lamps on, both kind of yellow and dusty. The curtains were pulled tightly shut, blocking out the street. There was a dusty-looking TV in the corner with a stack of horror DVDs beside it. A big bowl of popcorn sat in the middle of the coffee table, along with some knockoff brand sodas. "Cool setup," Aiden said as he dropped his backpack. "Thanks," Miles murmured, barely above a whisper. He stood by the window, not really moving, like he was unsure what to do now that we were all here. We shuffled in and settled ourselves. Jenna claimed the corner of the couch and tugged a blanket over her legs. Rosie sprawled on the floor like a cat, and Chris started cracking dumb jokes to try and fill the silence. I sat on the far end of the couch, eyes quietly scanning the room. Something about it all just felt off. Miles never relaxed. He kept darting glances toward the front door, and then over his shoulder toward the dark hallway behind him. It was subtle, but it was constant, like he was waiting for someone else to show up. The first movie was one of those ridiculous 80s slasher flicks. Blood flying everywhere, teens making stupid decisions, screaming in the woods. It helped ease the tension. We laughed, shouted over the dumb jump scares, threw popcorn at each other when the killer popped out of nowhere. For a little while, it felt like a normal sleepover. We were loud, silly, almost comfortable. Then the second movie started. This one was different. It was older, black and white, some foreign film with slow music and long, drawn-out shots of a crumbling house. There were barely any jump scares, just shadows, silence, and this creeping, heavy sense of dread. That's when I noticed Miles wasn't watching the screen. He was standing behind the couch, arms crossed, eyes scanning us. Not in a casual way. He wasn't zoned out or half watching. He was staring, watching us react, watching our faces. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I saw Rosie shift and glance back at him. Chris did the same, letting out a quiet, nervous laugh. "You good, man?" Aiden asked, turning to look up at him. Miles blinked once, then he said calmly, "This one's based on a true story." None of us replied. It didn't really seem like a fun fact. His voice was too flat, too deliberate. He kept going like he'd been waiting for the moment. Most people think ghosts make noise, but they don't. They just watch. They keep watching until you forget they're even there. "Okay," Jenna muttered under her breath. "Thanks for that." "I'm just saying," Miles said, shrugging, like we were overreacting. We tried to keep watching the movie, but something in the room had changed. It felt colder somehow, like the air itself had thinned. No one laughed anymore. Rosie leaned close to Jenna and whispered something. Jenna shook her head slightly, then looked at the clock on the wall. Only 10:45. After the credits rolled, Miles stood up straighter and said, "Want to see the rest of the house?" No one answered right away, but Liam, of course, couldn't resist. "Sure, why not?" he said, already grabbing his phone like he was planning to document the tour. So we got up. Reluctantly, Miles led us upstairs. The wooden steps creaked under our weight, echoing louder than they should have. At the top, we followed him down a narrow hallway into his bedroom. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Dust, but something else underneath. Sweet, almost spicy. Cloves, maybe? His room was neat, but not comfortable. It felt curated, like a museum exhibit someone tried to make look lived in. Shelves lined the walls, packed with books, old candles, and these odd little dolls made of cloth and twine. Dozens of them. Each one a little different. Some had buttons for eyes, others had none at all. A few were missing limbs, arms, legs. One of them had its mouth stitched shut. "Did you make these?" Jenna asked. Her voice was light, but I could hear the edge in it. Miles nodded. "Yeah, I used to make them when I couldn't sleep." "What are they supposed to be?" Chris asked, squinting at one that looked burned. Miles didn't look away from them when he answered. "People," he said quietly. "Kind of." I forced myself not to stare at them too long. One of the dolls had red yarn stitched tightly across where its mouth should have been, and I could have sworn it was facing the window when we came in. But now, it was turned. Just a little. Angled toward the door. I blinked, trying to tell myself I was imagining it. Miles moved to his closet and opened it without a word. Inside, sitting slumped in an old wooden chair, was a life-sized figure. Not a doll. Bigger. Human-sized. It wore a long black robe that pooled around its feet. Its head was covered with a burlap sack stitched crudely at the neck. A jagged patch had been sewn where a mouth might have been. The hair spilling out from beneath the sack wasn't yarn. It was real. Dirty, brown, thin and tangled like it hadn't been washed in years. "This is the Watcher," Miles said softly. And then, finally, he smiled. A slow, small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "He sees everything," Rosie whispered. Her voice trembled. "Okay, I want to go back downstairs now," she said, taking a step back. But Miles wasn't done. "You shouldn't look into his eyes too long," he added, still staring at the figure. "He doesn't like it." Liam squinted at the burlap sack. "Doesn't even have eyes." "He does," Miles said without looking at us. "They're under the sack." Back in the living room, no one said much. We sat in silence, the third movie flickering on the screen. Something with vampires or curses I don't remember. None of us were really watching. I kept looking toward the stairs, half expecting to see that thing, Watcher, whatever it was, standing there at the top, tilting its head, listening. Eventually, people started to drift off. Aiden and Chris knocked out in their sleeping bags, curled up like little kids. Jenna and Rosie whispered to each other in low voices before settling under a shared blanket. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't stop thinking about the thing in the closet. The hair, the sewn mouth, the way Miles smiled when he introduced it, like it wasn't a joke or a decoration, but a guest. It felt like something upstairs was still awake. I don't know what time it was when I opened my eyes. The movie had ended. The screen was a soft, humming blue, casting a faint glow around the room. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Not the kind of peaceful silence you fall asleep to, but the kind that presses in around you. Something felt wrong. I sat up slowly, my head heavy, eyes adjusting to the dark. The hallway light was on, and at the edge of it, right where the shadows thickened, was a shape. At first I thought it was Miles, but this thing was too tall, too thin. It was wearing the same black robe, and its face, that same burlap sack, that same stitched patch where a mouth should be. I froze. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, head tilted slightly to one side like it was curious or listening. I reached out slowly, fingers shaking, and nudged Aiden. He stirred, groaned quietly, but didn't wake up. I turned back. The hallway was empty, gone, just like that. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. "You're dreaming," I told myself. "You have to be dreaming." I laid down again, heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat, and pulled the blanket up to my chin. But then I heard it. Creak, floorboards, upstairs, then another, and another, slow, steady, like footsteps pacing above us. Rosie sat up suddenly, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Jenna was already awake, clutching her blanket against her chest, eyes locked on the ceiling. Miles hadn't come back down. The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched too long. Then came the scraping. Something heavy being dragged, like a chair. Across the floor, Jenna whispered she wanted to leave. She was going to grab her bag and call her dad. Chris rolled over and mumbled she was being dramatic. And then, everything went dark. All of it. The hallway light, the lamps. Even the blue TV glow vanished like someone pulled a plug on reality. Total black. We all screamed. Panic exploded. I heard people fumbling for phones. Mine was dead. Rosie's too. Aiden's wouldn't turn on. Jenna's flickered like it might work, but it died in her hand. And then we heard it. Movement, fast, from the stairs, running. We couldn't see it, but we felt it. The air changed, thick, cold, electric. I swear I felt breathing, heavy, ragged, like something was standing inches away from me in the dark. Someone screamed. Someone crashed into the coffee table. I hit the floor, hands over my head, waiting for, I don't know what, the end? And then, silence. The lights blinked back on, and Miles was standing there, at the edge of the hallway, in normal clothes, t-shirt, pajama pants, holding a box of cereal. He squinted at us. "What happened?" he asked, voice flat with confusion. "Why are you all freaking out?" No one said anything. Rosie started crying. Chris told him to shut up. Just shut up. Aiden was standing, pale, shaking so hard I thought he might fall over. We left. Didn't argue, didn't pack, just left. Jenna texted her dad from the edge of the driveway, and we waited by the mailbox. No one spoke. Not during the wait. Not during the ride home. I never went back to Larkspur Lane. None of us did. 2 weeks later, Miles stopped showing up to school. Rumor was he transferred. Nobody knew where. No one really asked. But sometimes, late at night, I still see that hallway in my dreams. That figure at the edge of the light. The burlap sack. The tilt of its head, like it could hear me thinking. It all started the summer before 7th grade, back when nearly every night was a sleepover at Mia Thompson's house. She was my best friend, my person, and we lived right next door to each other on Oak Ridge Drive, a quiet, tree-lined street in Fairhaven, Michigan. It was the kind of neighborhood where mailboxes were still decorated for the seasons, where people smiled and waved from their driveways, and kids coasted on bikes until porch lights blinked them home. Mia and I were basically joined at the hip. Our parents joked we had to have been twins in a past life, the way we always showed up in matching pajamas or finished each other's sentences. If I wasn't at her house, she was at mine. And in the summertime, we practically lived together. Her house had more personality than mine. An old 2-story colonial painted a soft, peeling blue with white shutters that clapped in the wind. Inside, the floorboards moaned under every step, and the staircase creaked so loud you couldn't sneak to the kitchen without the whole house knowing. Her bedroom was at the front of the 2nd floor, with 2 big windows that looked out over the street. The walls were cluttered with posters and Polaroids, and the air always smelled faintly like lavender lotion and vanilla-scented candles. It was the kind of room that felt warm and alive, but when the house settled at night, it whispered like someone breathing just out of sight. Her parents, Eric and Dana, were always welcoming, treating me like another daughter. They didn't care how often I stayed over. It was understood. Her house felt like my second home. That Friday night in July started like so many others. I walked over just after lunch, a sleeping bag slung over one shoulder, and a plastic grocery bag stuffed with snacks, nail polish, and an old hoodie. The air was sticky with humidity, the sky a washed-out blue. Somewhere nearby, someone was grilling burgers, the smoky, savory scent drifting lazily down the block. Mia opened the door before I even knocked. A grin stretched across her face like she'd been waiting all day. "Finally," she said. "I was about 2 seconds away from coming to drag you over here." The house was blissfully cool, the soft hum of window AC units cutting through the stillness. We spent the rest of the afternoon exactly how you'd expect, watching stupid YouTube clips, scrolling through TikTok, painting each other's nails in neon colors, and whispering gossip about our classmates like we were secret agents. Dinner was spaghetti with her mom's garlic bread, which was always just slightly burnt on the edges but weirdly perfect that way. Afterward, Dana brought out brownies, still gooey in the middle, the top dusted with powdered sugar that melted on our fingers. By the time we climbed upstairs to her room, the sky outside had shifted from that deep July pink to a thick, moody purple. One by one, the streetlights flicked on, casting a dim, yellow haze over the neighborhood. We built a blanket fort between her bed and her desk, looping string lights through the backs of chairs, and huddled under it with her iPad balanced on a pillow. The movie was some low-budget horror flick we found online, and even though it was cheesy, the jump scares got us every time. We'd scream, then immediately dissolve into giggles, half from fear and half from knowing we were being ridiculous. When the movie finally ended, I remember looking at her clock. It was a sidewalk directly under the glow of a flickering streetlight. A man was walking, slowly, deliberately. At first I didn't think anything of it. People walked late sometimes, Maybe he couldn't sleep. Maybe he forgot something in his car. But then we both noticed he had no dog, no phone, nothing in his hands, and he wasn't actually going anywhere. He'd walk a few steps past a house, pause, pivot, then walk back the way he came. Then he'd do it again, back and forth, like he was waiting. "Do you know him?" I whispered. Mia shook her head without looking away from the window. "Never seen him before." She was right. He wasn't dressed like someone out for a walk. No athletic wear, no leash or earbuds. He was in dark pants and a jacket, even though it was warm enough that we'd been sweating just walking outside earlier. Something about him felt wrong, deliberate. Like this wasn't some guy who'd taken a wrong turn. He was looking for something, or someone. He was wearing a thick dark hoodie with the hood pulled up tight over his head, even though it was easily 75 degrees outside. Baggy cargo pants hung off his frame, and he wore heavy boots that looked like they belonged to someone working construction, not walking around a quiet neighborhood after midnight. His hands stayed buried deep in the front pocket of his hoodie, unmoving. We didn't say anything, just pressed ourselves against the window glass, eyes locked on him, barely breathing. My breath kept fogging up the pain. I wiped it with my sleeve, slowly, afraid even that small movement might somehow catch his attention. Then he stopped. He stood still, right under the flickering streetlight, and just looked around. His head moved slowly from left to right, scanning the dark houses like he was counting. And then, almost like he felt us watching, he looked up, right at us. We dropped like stones to the floor, hearts pounding like we'd run a marathon. I could hear Mia next to me, whispering over and over like a broken record. "What the hell, what the hell, what the hell?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was frozen, trying to convince myself that maybe, he hadn't actually seen us. Maybe he was just looking at the house. It was possible, right? Total coincidence, but the way he turned his head, the timing, the way his gaze locked exactly where we'd been. No, we both knew. He saw us. We stayed on the carpet, backs against the wall, not speaking, just listening. Every sound from outside made my skin tighten. A car passed in the distance. A dog barked somewhere. Then Mia let out this shaky laugh. It sounded forced. "He probably didn't really see us," I said, trying to make it true by saying it aloud. "Yeah," she echoed. "Maybe he's just waiting for an Uber or something." Neither of us believed it. Not really. But it was better than silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. We froze. Mia's house didn't have a doorbell. You either knocked or you didn't come in. We sat there in absolute silence, staring at each other. Maybe we imagined it. Maybe it was the wind. Then, knock, knock. Louder this time, heavier. I looked down the hall toward her parents' room, but we didn't move. Waking them felt too dramatic. We weren't sure yet. And so, in the single dumbest decision either of us has ever made, we crept downstairs. We didn't turn on the lights, just moved like shadows, trying not to breathe too loudly. Every step on the staircase groaned beneath our weight, and with each one, I felt like I was walking deeper into something I couldn't explain. At the bottom, we crouched next to the front door. There was a narrow window beside it, the kind with that weird wavy glass that slightly distorts everything on the other side. I leaned in, heart pounding in my ears. He was there, right there, too close to the door, almost pressed against it. The hood still covered most of his face, but I could make out his posture, tense, shoulders hunched. Something about him radiated pressure, like he was wound up, ready to spring. And then, as if he could feel our eyes again, he turned. His face tilted toward the window, slow and mechanical, and he saw us. His skin was pale, almost gray under the porch light. His eyes were wide, deep-set, hollow. They didn't look at us so much as through us. I'll never forget them, those eyes, like they belonged to something that didn't quite understand what it was seeing but wanted to get closer anyway. We ducked back again, hearts racing. "What the hell is happening?" Mia whispered. Her voice was thin and cracked. Then came the pounding. He slammed both fists against the glass. Boom, boom, boom. Over and over, like he was trying to break the whole door down with sheer force. The frame rattled. The sound echoed through the house. We screamed, bolted up the stairs. Our feet barely touched the steps. We threw open her parents' bedroom door, shouting that someone was trying to break in. Her dad shot out of bed, still half asleep but moving fast. By the time he got downstairs, the man was gone. The front porch was empty. The cops arrived about 20 minutes later. They checked everything. Yard, porch, driveway, even did a sweep around the neighborhood. But there was nothing. No footprints, no car parked nearby, no witnesses, just empty silence and the sick feeling of something unfinished. One of the officers told us it was probably someone drunk or high. Said sometimes people wander, knock on doors, forget where they are. But that didn't feel right. Why had he looked up at us? Twice? Why knock like he was waiting for permission? Why stare through the glass like he already knew us? I called my parents and had them come get me. I didn't sleep that night. Mia didn't either. We stayed on our phones, texting in the dark until the sun started to rise. We still talk about that night sometimes. We're 23 now. I live in a different state. She moved out of that house 2 years ago. But a few months ago, Mia told me something that shook me deeper than anything that night ever could. She'd been going through old family photo albums, scanning them into her laptop. And in one from her 7th birthday party, balloons, cake, backyard full of kids and folding chairs, she spotted something. Behind the fence. A man, standing there, just watching, wearing a dark hoodie, face in shadow, looking straight at the camera. No one remembers inviting him. Her parents swear they don't know who he was. She showed me the picture over FaceTime. My stomach dropped. It was him. The same man. He'd been there years before we saw him on the street, watching us even then. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if we'd opened the door that night, or if her parents hadn't been home. And sometimes, when I'm walking alone or hear a knock after dark, I wonder if he's still out there, waiting, watching. I still remember how the air felt that night. Thick, warm, and perfectly still. The kind of quiet you only notice when you're a kid waiting for something exciting to happen. I was 10 back then, and summer meant sticky popsicles, scraped knees, and sleepovers that lasted until the sky started turning blue and birds began to chirp. Most weekends, I stayed over at my cousin Liam's house. His place always felt like another world, bigger, older, and filled with that soft kind of creakiness that made every game of hide-and-seek feel like an epic quest. Unlike my tiny 2-bedroom apartment, Liam's house had hiding spots that felt like they were made for adventure. Crawl spaces behind closet walls, narrow attic stairs, closets with squeaky doors, a basement that split into 3 separate storage rooms that always smelled like dirt and old cardboard. To us, it was practically a castle. This was before iPads, before TikTok, before we had phones of our own. Back then, if you wanted fun, you had to make it yourself. And our favorite creation was flashlight hide and seek. The rules were sacred. No lights except for 1 flashlight per person. No help, no peeking. The hider got 5 minutes to vanish into the house. After that, the hunt began. We thought we were brave. We thought we were smart. But we were just kids pretending not to be afraid in a house that seemed to breathe with secrets. Liam's parents were cool. His mom, Aunt Rachel, worked night shifts at the hospital, and his dad was some kind of surveyor who traveled a lot, sometimes for days. That night, they were both out at a friend's anniversary party 2 towns over in Ocean View. They planned to stay overnight at a nearby hotel, which meant we had the whole house to ourselves. Well, almost. Liam's older brother Dean, who was 17 and permanently annoyed with everything, was technically in charge. But at around 9:00 p.m., Just as we were finishing our grilled cheese sandwiches in the kitchen, Dean leaned back against the fridge and said casually, "I'm heading out for a while. Don't be stupid, don't burn the place down, and if anyone asks, I'm upstairs asleep." He didn't wait for a response. "Cool," Liam mumbled through a mouthful of sandwich without even looking up. A minute later, the screen door creaked open and slammed shut behind Dean. It wasn't the first time. Dean liked being gone. Liam liked being free. I was just the visiting cousin along for the ride. We got started like always, with rock, paper, scissors. I lost. 5 minutes? Liam grinned, holding his dim blue flashlight like it was a sword. "And no attic this time. You cheat." "That was once," I shot back, already tiptoeing toward the basement door. "And you still never found me." He groaned and started counting from the dark basement stairs. I didn't go down. Instead, I crept all the way upstairs, past the main floor and up to the second story. Liam's house was weirdly laid out, like it had been built in stages. The second floor had a second living room, 2 extra bedrooms, and a long hallway that always smelled like dust and mothballs. Everything up there felt untouched, like it belonged to someone who had moved out a long time ago. I slipped into the smaller spare bedroom at the end of the hall. The floor creaked under my socks, but only once. Inside, there were 2 massive beanbag chairs slumped under a dusty window. An old quilt was folded on a storage box against the wall. Perfect. I wedged myself down between the beanbags and pulled the quilt over me, careful to leave a little gap near my nose to breathe. I left the bedroom door cracked open an inch, just enough to look like I was being lazy. Hopefully it would throw him off. All I had to do was stay quiet, stay still. But then, something felt off. At first, I told myself it was just nerves. That fuzzy, prickly sense, steady, confident. Like whoever was coming up didn't care about being quiet. "Liam?" I whispered into the darkness beneath the quilt. But there was no answer. Just another step. Then another. Whoever it was, they were coming upstairs. The carpet muffled most of it, but I could still track the steps. They moved slowly down the hallway, steady and deliberate, until they stopped right outside the spare bedroom. My heart clenched. Then the door creaked open with a soft groan, and the footsteps came in. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. My heart pounded so loud I was sure it could be heard from under the quilt. Whoever it was moved quietly, too quietly, to the closet. I heard the hinges groan as the door opened, then the second closet next to it. Another pause, then drawers being slid open, one after another. That wasn't right. Liam never rummaged like that. His idea of searching was swinging his flashlight around the room, maybe lifting a curtain and calling it quits after half a minute. This was methodical, slow, like someone looking for something they weren't supposed to find. Then I heard it, Liam's voice. "Ah," he called in a sing-song tone from somewhere farther down the hall. My entire body tensed. That meant Liam wasn't in the room. Whoever was in the room wasn't him. Under the blanket, I stayed frozen, my body stiff with fear, but inside my head thoughts screamed and scattered like 1,000 birds startled all at once. I carefully, barely, lifted the edge of the quilt. What I saw made my breath catch. The figure near the desk wasn't a boy. He was tall, taller than Dean by a full head, wearing dark jeans and a pale hoodie with the hood pulled up. His back was slightly hunched, face shadowed beneath the hood, just the outline of a jaw and cheek visible in the dim light. He froze when he heard Liam's voice again, closer now. Without a sound, the man slipped back, pressing himself into the corner near the closet, hidden behind a short jut of wall. He moved like he'd done it before, silent, calculated, like he knew the room better than he should have. A second later, Liam stepped into the doorway, flashlight in hand, still in full game mode. He shined the beam lazily across the room, the circle of light skipping over the beanbags. I didn't know if he saw me under the blanket, but I made a decision. I couldn't let Liam come inside. I sat up quickly, forcing out a laugh. Okay, okay, you got me, I said, tossing the quilt aside like I was just another kid giving up the game. Liam's face lit up. Took me long enough, he grinned. I got up, walked toward him casually, and slung my arm around his shoulder like it was nothing. Let's get a snack or something, I said, my voice a little too high, a little too cheerful. As we stepped into the hallway and started walking toward the stairs, I leaned in close to his ear. Someone's in there, I whispered. We need to go. Now. He didn't say a word, but I felt him stiffen, his face drained of color. We didn't hesitate. We ran. Down the stairs, through the kitchen, out the back door. We didn't even look behind us. We sprinted across the yard to the neighbor's house in our socks. I don't remember knocking, maybe we did, maybe we just burst in. Mrs. Halpern opened the door, saw our faces, and immediately pulled us inside. We told her everything at once, words tripping over each other, breathless and panicked. She called 911 without a moment's hesitation. The police showed up in under 6 minutes. From her living room window, we watched the squad cars pull up, lights flashing. Officers poured into Liam's house, flashlights sweeping, voices barking commands. 5 minutes later, they brought someone out in handcuffs. It was him. He wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a friend of the family. 2 days earlier, he'd been seen walking around the neighborhood asking people if they had scrap metal or tools for sale. He had a screwdriver and a box cutter in the pocket of his hoodie. No criminal record, no obvious motive. But the way he moved in that room, the calm way he stood there, hidden, watching, it still haunts me. Liam never wanted to play hide-and-seek again. Neither did I. His parents had a security system installed that week. Dean got grounded for the rest of the summer. Honestly, it felt like he got off easy. And me? Even now, years later, I still check closets before sleeping in a new place. Every corner, every shadow, because I know how fast everything can change, how fun can turn to fear in an instant. Sometimes I still think about that man, how calm he looked, how ready, and I wonder what would have happened if Liam hadn't called my name. Most nights. But when I was 13, I made an exception for my best friend, Alex. It was a chilly Friday in late October, and we'd been planning the sleepover for weeks. Alex had finally convinced his dad to let him stay up late, and we were determined to marathon Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube and gorge on pizza rolls until we couldn't move. It was the kind of night we talked about at lunch for days beforehand. Alex lived out in the country, in a quiet little town just outside Asheville, North Carolina. You know the kind, one main road, a flickering gas station that looked abandoned half the time, and more deer than people. His house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, with only one neighbor, a house that had been empty for over a year. Across the street, there was an overgrown field where the grass stood waist-high, and behind his backyard loomed a forest so thick that even during the day, sunlight barely filtered through the trees. The den was our fortress for the night. It was tucked away on the lower level, just a short hallway from the sliding glass door that opened to the backyard. Upstairs, his dad, Mark, had gone to bed early. That gave us the whole floor to ourselves. Sleeping bags, junk food, a pile of horror DVDs we definitely weren't allowed to watch, and our precious GameCube. It started drizzling around 9. By 10, the rain had softened into a fine mist, and by 11, the sky outside had gone a deep, swollen purple, occasionally lit up by flashes of lightning that didn't make a sound. It was one of those nights that felt on edge, like the world was holding its breath. That's when we heard the knock. We were deep in the middle of a boss fight, our eyes glued to the screen, when there came a sudden thunk, thunk, thunk. 3 knocks. Solid, steady, against the sliding glass door behind us. Alex paused the game. "You hear that?" he whispered, glancing at me. I nodded slowly, heart already speeding up. "Yeah, that was outside, right?" Had to be. We didn't move. The blinds over the door were closed tight, so we couldn't see anything. I felt frozen in place. Like if I stayed still long enough, nothing else could move either. "I'm gonna check," Alex murmured, standing. "Dude, no, don't," I hissed, louder than I meant to. But he was already reaching for the cord. Panic jolted through me. I jumped off the couch and smacked the lamp's switch. The room was swallowed by darkness. The TV's glow vanished with a soft click as I powered that off too. Everything went silent, except for the soft patter of rain and the low hum of our own breathing. Outside, even through the blinds, it was somehow brighter. The lightning lit up the mist like a camera flash catching smoke. For a moment, it looked like we were underwater. Alex hesitated, then slowly pulled the blinds apart. Nothing. Just the wet gleam of the backyard, the glisten of grass, the dense black shape of the forest beyond. No movement, no figure. Just the faint reflection of two scared boys staring out at the night. Neither of us spoke. We just stood there watching that door, as if the longer we stared, the more sense it would make. But nothing happened. Eventually, we turned the lights back on. The game resumed, but the mood had shifted. I kept glancing toward the glass, waiting, hoping it had been something harmless, wind maybe, or a raccoon, maybe even Mark playing a joke, though deep down I knew better. Mark wasn't the joking type. The man barely spoke, let alone pulled pranks. Close to midnight, it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. We froze. It was louder this time. Not aggressive, but heavy, intentional, deliberate. Each knock felt like a question we didn't want to answer. We both turned slowly toward the glass. With the lights on inside, the reflection was all we could see. Our pale faces and why. He was watching us. We bolted. Alex nearly went down, his foot catching the coffee table. I didn't even look back. I was already halfway up the stairs, my socks slipping against the hardwood. We didn't stop until we hit his dad's room, bursting through the door like we were being chased. I grabbed Mark's shoulder and Alex shouted, "There's someone in the backyard." Mark jerked upright, bleary but calm, his instincts kicking in fast. He wasn't the panicky kind. Still half asleep, he reached under the bed and pulled out a heavy flashlight in one hand and a wooden baseball bat in the other. No questions, no hesitation. "Stay close," he said as he moved. We threw on our shoes as we followed him out the sliding door. The porch light flicked on with a soft buzz, casting long shadows over the yard. Everything looked quiet. Rain dripped from the gutters. The grass shimmered under the weak glow. Then Alex pointed. "There," he said, voice low. "Footprints." They were impossible to miss. Boot prints, deep and wide, pressed into the mud just outside the door. Heavy. Fresh. They curved from the edge of the porch, right up to the glass, then veered away again. We followed the tracks cautiously across the yard. The flashlight beam bounced over puddles and wet blades of grass. The prints led straight toward the woods, but just before the tree line, they vanished. The ground became firmer, less muddy, and the trail faded into nothing. No figure, no sound. Just mist curling between the trees and thunder murmuring somewhere in the distance. We waited, half expecting something, anything, to move out there. Nothing did. Back inside, Mark locked the doors, checked every window, then locked them too. The front, the garage, everything. When he returned to the den, he kept the bat in hand. "Probably just some local kid messing around," he muttered, but his eyes didn't match the words. His jaw was tight. His fingers gripped the handle like he expected to use it. Alex and I crawled back into our sleeping bags, but neither of us relaxed. The room stayed dark. We left the TV off. The blinds stayed shut. I stared at the clock across the room, watching the glowing numbers inch forward. My body was still, but inside I felt like I was wound tight. Like if I blinked wrong, something would happen. And it did. Knock, knock. Exactly 12:15. Not loud this time. Not like before. It was softer, slower, but precise. Like whoever it was, knew. We were listening. We didn't even speak. We just moved, fast. Two shapes darting up the stairs again. I heard Mark's bedroom door creak open as we reached the top. "He was all right?" I asked, sitting up straighter. Riley didn't answer right away. His body tensed like he'd forgotten I was there. "There's like something down there," I said. "We don't have a basement," he muttered finally. "Not one you can get to from inside." I blinked. "Then what's under us?" "I don't know," he said. He still wasn't looking at me, just staring at the hardwood like he could see through it. "We've been hearing stuff the past few days. My dad says it's animals, maybe the pipes." I shook my head. "Doesn't sound like animals." He gave a small nod, almost to himself. "Yeah." The way he said it sent a chill through me. The next morning, we went outside after breakfast. The sky was gray, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to storm or just hang there all day. The air was thick, the woods quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like they were holding their breath. Riley led me around the back of the house where the mowed lawn gave up completely to thick, tangled woods. The trees loomed close together, their branches knitting overhead, and the air felt heavier under the canopy. "There's no real path," he said, nudging aside some trampled brush with his shoe. "Just like places where deer or something come through." He glanced back at me. "We can explore a little. Not too far, though." "Why not?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated. "Just don't want to get lost," he said. But there was something in his voice, too quick, too rehearsed. We pushed in anyway, weaving through the underbrush, dodging low-hanging limbs. Maybe 200 yards in, just as I was swatting a mosquito from my neck, Riley's foot caught something with a dull, metallic thunk. He stumbled and looked down. "What the hell?" he muttered, crouching. I stepped closer, and we both stared at what he'd uncovered. A rusted metal cellar door, half buried under moss, dead leaves, and years of neglect. The iron hinges were brown with corrosion. No lock. "I didn't even know this was here," he said, brushing dirt away and running his fingers along the old handle. I took a step back. "Dude, this is like straight up Blair Witch stuff." He cracked a smile, but his face had gone pale. Still, without saying anything, he grabbed the handle and yanked. The door screamed open like something dying. The metal hinges groaned and shuddered as the door peeled back inch by inch, revealing a square shaft of darkness below. A rotted wooden ladder hugged one wall, barely intact. The smell hit us instantly. Thick, earthy rot mixed with something chemical and sharp, like old bleach and rust. Riley pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam barely pushed through the black, but we could see just enough. A dirt floor, shards of broken glass catching the light. Metal, maybe pipes or tools, leaning crookedly against the far wall. A rusted cot, wooden shelves warped from moisture. Then, clink. Something shifted. We froze. Another sound, metal dragging along concrete. Closer this time. "Riley," I whispered, barely breathing. "We need to go." He nodded, eyes wide, fixed on the dark. Then we heard it. Hands. On the rungs. Someone was climbing up. We ran. No plan, no words, just pure instinct. Branches clawed at our arms and faces. I tripped once, caught myself, lungs burning. The trees blurred past. I didn't look back. When we stumbled into the backyard, Riley's dad was in the garage, bent over a tool bench. He dropped what he was holding the second he saw our faces. "There's someone down there," Riley shouted. "Under the yard!" His dad didn't even ask what we were talking about. He followed us fast, no hesitation. When he saw the cellar door, he stopped short. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, staring. "I thought they sealed this up." He turned to us sharply. "Inside. Now." We tried to argue, tried to explain, but his voice turned hard, cold. It was an order, not a request. Inside the house, Riley's mom met us in the hallway. Her face was already creasing with alarm. "What's going on?" she asked, stepping toward us. "Call Frank and Leon," his dad said. "Tell them I need them, Now. She didn't ask questions, just grabbed the phone. 30 minutes later, a dusty pickup pulled up, followed by another. Two men got out, one older, bald with a thick beard, the other younger in a work jacket despite the heat. They carried heavy-duty flashlights, tool belts, and something long wrapped in a canvas sling. A crowbar, maybe.